Hey guys, welcome to Silver Linings Playbook. NFL Week 6 is in the book. Let's talk about it. Week 6 is in the book, and one of the biggest things I took away from this week is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are really looking like the team to beat, suffering more injuries to their wide receiver core. My Rookie of the Year pick, Emeka Egbuka, went down with a hamstring injury, but that didn't seem to matter to Baker Mayfield. They had Johnson and Johnson, their wide receivers were there. Tez Johnson made a fantastic catch towards the end of the game and did an amazing backflip. I really wish these guys wouldn't do backflips. I don't know. I'm sure the GMs and the coaches are holding their breath when these guys flip over with the amount of injuries we've had to guys' Achilles and ACLs this year. You know, I appreciate the athleticism is amazing, but hey, guys, for your team, think for your team. Let's just what happened to spiking the ball? Let's just spike the ball. You don't have to spike yourself. Amazing catch, though, by Tez Johnson. Baker Mayfield still looking like the MVP candidate right now, especially now with all the injuries, and he's still able to pull out these games. In the end, San Francisco, that was a tough loss. And another horrible injury for them, losing Fred Warner. That's going to affect their defense. Kyle Shanahan, Coach of the Year, man. Like that is what he's dealing with in San Francisco is something that just seems insane. It's on both sides of the ball. Hopefully it looks like they're getting some of their offensive weapons back. Maybe this week, George Kittle and Ricky Pearsall look like they might be ready to come back. We'll see how that goes. We'll have to watch towards the end of the week. But, man, what a game. I've said it over and over again. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are must-see TV. I mean, I don't care who your favorite team is, but you've got to find a way to watch Tampa Bay play football this year. The way they battle, the way they come back, the way they play a full 60 minutes, it's impressive. Todd Bowles is doing a great job. I'm sure Jet fans are now pulling their hair out, wondering like, hey, we're 0-6. What happened? We had Todd Bowles. What did we do? Yeah, you guys let him go too soon. I don't know why. He's a good coach then. He's a good coach now. He's got a great team going on in Tampa Bay. Seriously, whatever you got to do this week, you guys got to watch Tampa Bay. Every single game this year has been close, coming down to the fourth quarter, last minute, last play, game-winning field goal. You name it, they've had it all. And with the injuries they're dealing with on the offensive side of the ball, it's amazing what they're able to do. To me, like one of the plays of the week was Baker Mayfield. I think it was 3rd and 14, and he looked like he was sacked. He was grabbed in the backfield and somehow, some way escaped, got the first down. You're thinking, okay, go down. Nope, he keeps going, stretches out, gets a first down, does this little shimmy shake in celebration, and it sealed the game for them. That was Baker Mayfield is just playing out of his mind right now. Whatever you guys got to do this week, watch Tampa Bay play football. They are really something right now. They are really doing it. Another thought I had on this week was the early game in London, the Jets and the Broncos. Maybe one of the ugliest offensive games I've ever seen. Both teams struggling on the offensive side of the ball. Justin Fields on his back most of the day and running for his life the rest of the time. They're 0-6 now. They had a really questionable call at the end of the first half when they were down 10-6. They had the ball. They had time. They were driving. They looked like they were trying to get into field goal range. And then inexplicably, they just held the ball and let the clock run out. And the announcers at the time were confused. The fans were booing and confused. Garrett Wilson was clearly confused and angry and yelling at Aaron Glenn. And the explanation by Aaron Glenn after the game still leaves me scratching my head. Like, I get you don't want to give them the ball back, but it was like 12 seconds. It wasn't really like a lot of time. I know you don't want to punt the ball, but at least like run around, throw a Hail Mary, something, try to get something close to field goal range. And even at the end of that game, they were driving and they were about 3 yards outside of, they had the line on the field showing where the kicker Nick Folk's range should be. And they looked like they were maybe about 3 or 4 yards beyond that. And instead of like trying a super long field goal that might not have made it, but we'll never know, because they went for it on 4th and 8 and Justin Fields gets sacked again. I think it was the 9th sack of the day, and that sealed the game for them. And you're just wondering, I'm just wondering on the offensive side of the ball what the Jets are doing right now. Really don't get it. They're not running the ball. If you can't pass, Denver's defense is one of the best in the league. So let's give them a bunch of credit. But at the same time, the Jets defense looked like one of the best in the league on Sunday. So it's clearly the offensive side of the ball. Clearly, same problems they had a couple of years ago with Aaron Rodgers here. Couldn't protect him. They can't protect Justin Fields either. They're not running the ball. Their passing routes seem to be too long, so he's having to hold it. The line clearly can't block them that long. It's time to switch to a shorter passing game, in my opinion, and get the ball out of his hands quicker, because right now these longer plays aren't working. And another note coming out of that game, Garrett Wilson looks like he's going to miss this week and maybe a couple of weeks, because he got a hyperextended knee at some point in that game. So it looks bad for the Jets right now. I feel like this week is their best opportunity to win for a while. If they don't win now, then we're going to be looking at them wondering if they're going to get any wins this season. Hopefully, this doesn't put Aaron Glenn on the hot seat. A lot of times in the past, coaches come in and they start out slow. And in past years, you go back like Jimmy Johnson and the Cowboys, they were like 1-15 or something, and they stuck with him, and eventually a couple years later were winning Super Bowls. Even Dan Campbell in Detroit, they didn't start out great, but they allowed him to get his system in place and get his people in place and get the type of players he wanted in place. And now look at them. They're seeming like every year for the last 3 or 4 years, we've been picking them to maybe be Super Bowl contenders. This year's no different. So hopefully Aaron Glenn gets that same type of opportunity. It's tough being in New York because the media market is so big and so huge, but hopefully he gets the chance to build this team up and get the type of people and coaches around him that he wants, that are in the same mindset, and they get a chance to do it again next year, because realistically 0-6, the Jets aren't doing anything. They'd have to run the table at this point and go undefeated the rest of the way, and that just doesn't seem likely. I will say, watching that game, the Jets defense didn't give up. They kept trying, they kept playing, even the offense kept playing, but we didn't have any of those late game offensive explosions like the Jets have had the last couple of weeks when it looked like they were making a comeback. It didn't seem like they were going to win this game, but 13-11, it was just, that was a tough game to watch. A lot of questionable decisions, both sides of the ball. Both offenses looked bad. Both defenses looked really good. And unfortunately, another couple of injuries affecting this game and will be affecting the teams going forward and affecting your fantasy lineups. So Garrett Wilson, managers, and your fantasy lineup, it's time to look for somebody else, because it's looking like he's not going to play this week. Another game I wanted to talk about, the Bears and the Commanders on Monday night. The better of the two Monday night games, in my opinion. This is becoming a rivalry that I think we're going to have to watch the next couple of years. Both of these guys were drafted last year 1 and 2. They had an amazing game last season where Jaden Daniels led the Commanders to a victory with a last-second Hail Mary. I think they called it the Hail Maryland pass last year, where he threw it with all his might and it bounced and landed in Noah Brown's hands, and they won the game. It was the play of the year for me last year, because that was so unlikely to be successful. These Hail Marys rarely work, but that was an amazing game that came down to the last second. This past week, week 6, same type of thing. Back in Washington, the rain was a factor. There were some fumbles. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt fumbled the ball, kind of put him in the doghouse. For fantasy owners, he didn't really put up the numbers that you were expecting, especially after the game he had the previous week. Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels were fighting it out. I think these guys, every time they meet up, is going to be a game. Hopefully, these guys are both super talented. This game was super exciting. It was the kind of game you just love to watch each week. Both teams are playing well. both dealing with injuries, both fighting through the elements, but slugging it out. The defense is looking good. Ben Johnson, the first 2 weeks, the Bears weren't looking so good. We were wondering, can Ben Johnson cut it? But, the last couple of weeks, the Bears are starting to get it together and starting to play well, playing hard. They're playing 60 minutes. They're not giving up. Give that to Ben Johnson. He's getting these guys to play the full game. It was tough sledding. Roma Dunze managers, myself being one of them, he did almost nothing as far as a fantasy perspective goes, but with the weather the way it was, not surprising. So maybe hopefully this is just an anomaly, and next week he'll get back to his normal kind of numbers for fantasy managers. But the game coming down to the end, it looked like the Commanders were driving for a score, and they were just going to put it away with a field goal and run the clock out. But then Jane Daniels had the fumble. Maybe the weather had something to do with it. He said in his press conference he just lost focus, which, wow, can't happen. That can't happen in that moment. But, the Bears jumped on it. And then with their new kicker, Moody, who was cut by San Francisco earlier in the year because last year he missed a ton of pressure field goals for the 49ers and cost them wins, and did the same at the beginning of this year. So they cut him, and he's landed here in Chicago. Knowing Moody's history with kicks in this pressure situation, was not expecting him to pull it off. He also had one blocked earlier because it came out super low and right into the middle of the defensive lineman jumping up, hitting him in the face. So when he's lining up for this kick, I'm holding my breath. It could go either way, but good for him. He put it through. He gets carried off the field like Rudy, and the Bears win a nail-biter. But this rivalry that's building between Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, between the Bears and the Commanders, if these guys stay healthy, looking forward, these matchups between these two teams can be fun for years to come. Injuries continue to be the story of the week. I mean, the freakiest one of all being the backup quarterback for the Colts, Anthony Richardson, getting his eye socket broken before the game, I guess in warmups. I'm assuming he got hit in the face with a ball or something. I haven't seen any replays anywhere about it, but he's going to be out for a while. So the Colts are now looking for a backup quarterback. But Daniel Jones is playing so well that, if he stays healthy, knock on wood for him and the Colts, they're looking like the best team in football right now. Their one loss this year is something they shouldn't have had. We've talked about it on the podcast before. Adonai Mitchell dropping the ball on his way into the end zone against the Rams, that pretty much cost them that game. They could be 6-0 if not for that play, honestly. But they're not. They're 5-1. Their offense seems to be almost unstoppable. They hardly punt. Jonathan Taylor is looking like the best running back in football this year. The offensive line is doing a great job protecting Daniel Jones and making holes for the running backs. Tyler Warren, now that Ibuka's hurt, maybe Tyler Warren is the rookie of the year, because who knows how long Ibuka is going to miss games in Tampa Bay, but Tyler Warren is coming in. He's looking like the best tight end in all of the NFL, with 6 games under his belt, and he always seems to be open. So that's a huge weapon, and it's just impressive what they're doing. Their defense is tough. Their offense is doing it. Their special teams, getting takeaways. The kick return team and punt teams are doing a great job. I mean, the Colts really look like they're the team to beat right now in the AFC. At the same time in that game, let's give the Cardinals credit. They didn't have Kyler Murray. They lost Harrison with a concussion, who he's going to be out for a minute. I don't know how bad the concussion is. He could clear protocol this week and play, but I find that unlikely as someone who's had a concussion a year and a half ago. And I honestly don't think these guys should come back. Anybody who has a concussion and goes into the blue tent and is checked out for a concussion on a week, they most likely have a concussion. And honestly, them continuing to play with the collisions these guys have to suffer through and sustain, equivalent to a car accident every time they get tackled, I don't know how it's safe for them to come and play. So Marvin Harrison Jr. was lost in that game. I doubt he's going to play this week in week 7. Early things that I'm reading about that is looking like he's going to miss this game. So fantasy managers plan accordingly. Jacoby Brissett, what a pro. I mean, he came in, he did a great job with the Cardinals. They had a chance at the end. Maybe Trey McBride was held around the waist trying to get loose for that pass from Brissett. He complained about it. I could see his point, but the refs swallowed the whistle on that, and the Colts won that game. But give the Cardinals credit. They played well. They were toe-to-toe with the Colts, who, again, I just said they look like the best team in the league right now. And the Cardinals are right there. I mean, their record doesn't support that, but they played with them, and they were undermanned. They were missing two huge weapons in Kyler Murray and Harrison at that point, and their running backs, their backfield is kind of a mess right now. When Connor went down, everybody was thinking DeMarcado was going to be the guy, and then he had his weird drop fumble and kind of been in the doghouse since then. So it's looking like Bam Knight and Michael Carter are vying for that number one role right now. And the last 2 weeks, it was Carter 2 weeks ago, and it was Bam Knight this week. So who knows what's going on in the Arizona backfield from a fantasy perspective? I don't know. I'd stay away from that backfield as much as I'd stay away from the New England backfield at this point. But that was a great game. The Colts look good, and they look like they're the team to beat. Don't look now, but the Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers, they won again. They're the best team in their division by far. And at this point, those other three teams are not having a good go of it, and the Steelers look like they are in the driver's seat as far as that's concerned. Rodgers and Metcalf seem to be getting their chemistry going, had some nice plays. That defense of the Steelers did a great job this week, and Aaron Rodgers seems to have a skip in his step and is enjoying the game, it looks like. He's fitting in with Arthur Smith's offense well. They're doing it in all phases right now, the Steelers, and the Steelers are looking like the team to beat in that division right now. I was surprised the Steelers were as successful as they were against the Browns defense, but if the offense can't give the defense time to rest, the defense is going to get worn down, and I think that's what happened to the Browns this week. They just, didn't put up enough points on offense. Dillon Gabriel, I don't think he had as good a game as he had in his first start. I think the Steelers defense had a lot to do with that, but Dillon Gabriel's got to get something going to keep the "we want Shador" chants out of the mouths of their fans. I think it's too premature to abandon Gabriel after 2 games. So hopefully this week they get a good week of practice and get a better performance on the field than they had against the Steelers. The Chargers and Dolphins game came down to the wire. Justin Herbert had a great escape at the end, getting a pass off to Ladd McConkey, who ran for yards and basically sealed the game. The Chargers have no offensive line right now, pretty much injuries all throughout that line. Their first and second running backs are gone for a while. Hampton is going to be out for a couple more weeks, and Harris is gone for the season. Last week I said there was, from a fantasy point, we don't know what to do with that backfield because they got guys Vidal and Haskins who no one's really ever seen before. I was seeing experts on different fantasy football sites looking that Haskins was leaning to be the guy, the number one, but that was not the case. Vidal came in and had a crazy game. So from a fantasy perspective, if he's still available in your league, go out and get him as, hold on to him as a potential RB1. I mean, if he follows up this week in week 7 the way he played against the Dolphins, he's going to be one of the top running backs in the league because the game he had running for over 100 yards, he was all over the field. He had over 20 touches of the ball. He looked all the part of a running back one. Maybe that has a lot to do with the Dolphins defense not being able to stop the run. But either way, somebody to look for in your fantasy lineup is getting the Chargers running back Vidal, especially if you're dealing with injuries from some of the players you have. He's a guy to look for on the waiver wire. The Dolphins, boy, I'm not knowing what to say. I've been saying Mike McDaniels is really in the hot seat. His press conferences after this game, again, just as the way I'm searching for words right now, it seems the way he's searching for words in these press conferences and not really sure of what he's wanting to say. That makes me nervous from a fan's perspective. Looking at the coach, it makes me feel like he's doesn't want to be there, doesn't really know what to do. So something to keep an eye on. Tua Tagovailoa coming out, calling out teammates in his press conference, blaming the leaders of the team for not stepping up and coming to team meetings. But, I'm sorry, the starting quarterback is the team leader. Shouldn't you be talking to your teammates in the locker room and face to face instead of, calling them out in a press conference? It looks like all sorts of a mess in Miami right now. That whole situation with the way the players are talking about each other, the way the coach is mumbling in his press conferences. I'd love to hear from Miami fans what you guys think of this situation. I'm not a Miami fan, but I'm looking at this from a distance and going, "Ooh, that's not right. There's something seriously wrong going on there." Yeah, they've had injuries, but like I've been saying with almost every single game, every single team is dealing with major injuries at major positions, whether it be star wide receivers, running backs, quarterbacks, defensive players, you name it. Everybody's dealing with that at this point. But going into a press conference and saying we lost because people didn't come to team meetings and calling out other team leaders for not stepping up and doing their part and being late to meetings, I agree with him. That's not cool. Like, you want to see people being all in. I get his point, but I think you talk about that with each other and you keep that stuff in house. Maybe I'm used to the way the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick did it for 20 years and not basically saying a lot of generic-y comments that don't really tell you anything one way or the other. You would never see someone like Tom Brady coming out and calling out his teammates in the press conference. Tua didn't name names, but you can figure it out as a fan, like who he's talking about. You know who the star players are, and if he's calling out star players and leaders and captains, which he's one, he should look in the mirror. That old saying, like when you point a finger, when you point a finger at someone, you got four pointing back at you. Well, you've got fingers pointing back at you too. You're as much to blame for the situation going on in Miami as anybody. And from a fan's perspective, I don't like to see that kind of stuff. And like I said, maybe I'm just spoiled the way, being a New England fan, their press conferences were the most boring things for 20 plus years and still seem to be. No one's really saying anything scandalous up there. So I don't know, Miami fans, what are your thoughts on that? I'd love to hear from any Miami fans what they're thinking is going on with the Dolphins and Tua and Coach McDaniel. I'd just love to hear what you guys think about that. I mentioned New England, I saw, I forget if it was Good Morning Football or ESPN, one of the NFL shows, but the talk is they're putting Drake May in the MVP category. I mean, I'll say pump the brakes on that one. The Patriots are doing well, and I am surprised as anybody. I was really happy if they would be like a 500 team this year. Right now, they're 4-2, and with the Bills' loss on Monday, they're now in first place. So technically, because they beat the Bills, so they have the tiebreaker. So they are definitely trending in the right direction. I'd love to see their running game get going. From a fantasy perspective, I had both of those guys on my roster earlier in the year, but I've since dropped them because they can't figure it out. And in typical Josh McDaniel fashion, if you really think about the Patriots going back, even back when Tom Brady was there was never really any star running backs ever. They would always do by committee. They have specialists. They got the receiving backs and the short yardage backs and there's not a Jonathan Taylor type running back where we're going to hand the guy the ball 25 times and he's going to get 150 yards. There's no Derrick Henrys up in New England. Ramondre Stevenson could be that guy, but he can't seem to hold on the ball. Travion Henderson hasn't gotten his feet under him yet. His usage has been sporadic, and that's the nicest thing I can say about that. Their running backs are not trustworthy from a fantasy perspective, but from a football perspective, I mean, they're doing what they need to do. The wide receivers each week, like Stephon Diggs for the past 2 weeks was over 100 yards. He had that great game against the Bills. And then this week, nearly invisible, non-existent. And Booty is the guy getting all the touchdowns and the catches. Hunter Henry still, his usage is hit or miss from week to week. But again, it seems like a Josh McDaniel thing. Like if they've got 11 receivers and backs from each week, all 11 can be involved. There's nobody that's the focus like it was last week in Buffalo with Diggs, where they were trying to feed him the ball. Because, you get it. He played there for a long time, and I'm sure he didn't really want to leave. So they wanted to help him get his revenge. But again, this week 6, Diggs was, only had a couple of catches. But Drake May is being started to be talked about, whispered about as a potential MVP. I'm not going to get on that bandwagon just yet. I want to see a little more. He is young. He's playing great. Don't get me wrong. In the game against the Bills, everybody's like, oh, you can't let him run to the right. Let him run to the right. Every time he runs to the right, he's able to get rid of the ball and make a great play. Well, they kept him from running to the right mostly in this game, and he was still able to run to the left and get rid of the ball and make plays. So Drake May is definitely playing at an elite level right now. I'd like to see a little more consistency with the run game. The defense is coming up and starting to make good plays, having Christian Gonzalez back in the secondary and the cornerback Jones. These guys are playing well, starting to be a defense you can believe in. I'm very happy and very surprised that they're doing so well so soon in the season. I thought it might take a couple more games to get it going, but they seem to be getting it going, and I'm looking forward to see them keeping it going and beating a team they should beat like they did. They beat the Saints. The Saints are not winning. That's a team you should beat if you want to be a winning team. They have the Titans coming up this week. It's one of those games that could be a trap. You can look at the Titans for their record and look past them. Good teams don't look past teams with losing records. They play them as hard as they play. If the Chiefs or the Bills are coming into town or the Eagles are coming in town, you treat each opponent as a potential Super Bowl champion and you play them hard all the way through. They did that last week against the Saints. Let's see them do that this week against the Titans and keep it going. You need to beat the teams you're supposed to beat. If you're a good team, you don't play down to their level. And the Patriots didn't do that in week 6. Hopefully in week 7, they can continue that trend. The Rams beat the Ravens. The Ravens just look all sorts of a mess. The Cooper Rush experiment as a backup is over. They went to their third quarterback, Huntley, by the end of that game. The Rams beat them 17-3. The Rams may have lost Puka Nacua with an ankle injury. Everything I'm reading, he's not looking like he's going to play this week. As valuable as he is, the Rams let him heal. There's no reason to put him out there. You're in a place where maybe you can give him a week or 2 off. Let's hope it's not too long. He's definitely been the best receiver in the NFL this year by far. He and Matt Stafford, their connection is unbelievable. The Ravens, oh boy, they got to hold on and hope that Lamar Jackson comes back and they can win out, because the biggest shock for me this year is that the Ravens only have 1 win at this point. They played a lot of close games earlier in the season, but since Lamar got hurt, it's really nothing. Derrick Henry is shocking. His usage is shocking. He had his fumble problems. It cost him a couple of games. And I don't know if he's in his own head and has lost confidence, but he is one of the best running backs we've ever seen. And for them not to be using him and leaning on him, especially without Lamar, is surprising to me. I'm not sure what's going on there. Maybe there's something more going on than just his fumble issues. It's a line issue, maybe. They're not blocking. I really don't know. I haven't watched those games as tightly. Just from my viewpoint of watching the Ravens the way I have, it's just seems like they are not the Ravens that we're used to. Their defense is usually something you can always depend on. That's not the case. They're usually a smash mouth, run the ball. They rather jam it down your throat. That's not happening. So Coach Harbaugh there needs to figure that out quickly. I think he's safe. I don't think his job is in jeopardy. This guy's a great coach. They're always competitive, but this year that's not been the case. Injuries have played a big part, as we've talked about before, but that is clearly the biggest shock for me this year in the NFL, is the Ravens only having 1 win at this point. Cowboys and Panthers. Rico Dowdell told the Cowboys he was coming and to buckle up, and boy, did he deliver. It's rare that a guy will make a statement like that and call his shot like that and then actually follow it up. But Rico Dowdell put his money where his mouth was, and he bet on himself, and he ran all over the Cowboys. And I'm sure the Cowboys wish they would have seen some of that explosiveness and running when he was with them for 5 years. But, he said he was coming. He did. He showed up. He ran it down their throat. They win the game at the end. Cowboys defense still can't seem to stop anybody. They can't seem to stop the run. And, the Micah Parsons trade is still looming over their head. They're clearly missing him. I've got to question their defensive coordinator and his plans. He wasn't doing a great job when he was the coach of Chicago. And now he's the defensive coordinator in Dallas, and maybe the scheme that they're running doesn't match with the players that they have. And he needs to make an adjustment because they're not stopping anything at this point. And, tip your hat to the Carolina Panthers, because now they're starting to play like that team at the end of last season that looked like, oh, maybe they're figuring it out. They're fighting to the end and they're coming through. So give them a lot of credit. They're looking like they're figuring it out. So don't look now. The Carolina Panthers might be one of these sneaky teams that if they can start to have that success a little more, maybe we're talking about them as a playoff team in a couple of weeks. But we'll have to wait and see. But good for you, Rico Dowdell. Good for you for throwing it down, saying you were going to do it. You did it. That was a nice thing to see. You don't see that often. Seahawks and Jaguars. Seahawks really looking like one of the premier teams in the NFC this year. Their second-year coach has got his team playing at a high level. Sam Darnold and Jackson Smith-Njigba, their connection is unbelievable. Jackson Smith-Njigba, big games every single week. Darnold is hooking up with him as much as he did with Justin Jefferson in Minnesota when he was there, and now he has that connection with Jackson Smith-Njigba. And it's their offense. They can run the ball. They've got a good tight end. Their receivers are working. Darnold's not turning the ball over. Their defense is solid. There's not a lot of holes in the Seattle Seahawks team right now. Jacksonville, that was a tough loss. They've been playing well. They still have 4 wins, so they're still one of the better teams in the AFC at this point. But that was a tough one. Trevor Lawrence seemed to fall off a little bit from his, he had the game of his career, I thought, in week 5, and then in week 6 it was a little bit of a letdown. But again, give credit to Seattle for causing that. Their defense, I think, is more the reason. It's not like anything wrong with Trevor Lawrence or the plan of the Jaguars. It's just the better team last week was the Seahawks on all phases of the ball. So credit to Seattle. Let's look for Jacksonville to bounce back this week. And I'm not going to go through all the games this week, but the last game I want to talk about is the Chiefs game. The Chiefs definitely seem to be the team that they were that went to the Super Bowl last year right now. And in week 7, they're going to be getting Rashee Rice back, who is Patrick Mahomes' favorite receiver. They clearly were figuring it out. Their offense, they were doing the little trick plays and had Patrick Mahomes looking like Patrick Mahomes. And Andy Reid has gotten his groove back calling plays. And the Chiefs look to be starting to fire on all cylinders, except for running the ball. I do feel they're not getting enough out of their run game. I'd like to see Pacheco or Hunt, one of those guys, take control of this backfield and become like the more dominant back. Although Kareem Hunt did have this amazing run towards the end of the game. He just blew up a safety or a cornerback who tried to come up and tackle him, and that was a bad business decision on that guy's part. Kareem Hunt seemed to knock that defensive back out when he hit him, and that was a pretty angry run in my opinion. But the Chiefs are looking good. Their defense did well. I mean, the Lions are probably one of the best teams and one of the favorites to make the Super Bowl from the NFC. They're figuring their stuff out too with all, the much talked about new coordinators, but from week to week, when they get it going, the Lions are just an impressive team. They've got weapons in all positions, wide receiver, tight end, running back. Their quarterback is solid, doesn't make a lot of mistakes, and their defense is really good, but it just wasn't good enough this week against the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. The ugly incident at the end of the game where Branch from the Lions punched Juju Smith-Schuster in the face and started a brawl after the game was over. That was just uncalled for. He's going to be suspended for a game. There's no place in football for that. And I just also don't understand, like, somebody's wearing a helmet and you're punching them with your hand. Like it doesn't make sense, like, to do that. Like, the game's over at that point. You lost. So punching Juju Smith-Schuster in the face is completely out of line. So the league already took care of that. As soon as it happened, that's what I said. Oh, he's suspended, because that was just unbelievable. Poor sportsmanship all around. Dan Campbell himself said there's no place for that. They're not going to tolerate that. I mean, the league took care of it. I don't know if the Lions are going to do anything further on their end for discipline, but Branch has a week to think about it and some fines to pay. And the Lions need to get their act together, because they're already decimated in the secondary with injuries, and now losing a guy just because of a poor decision on his part, a mental lapse, a really bad judgment, like throwing a punch. It doesn't help the team this week, but we'll see how the Lions do. They weren't able to run the ball. Montgomery and Gibbs are that's the best running back tandem in the league. Like, you could put either one in there and they're going to run for 100 yards. Usually they both run for close to 100 yards. They weren't able to do that against Kansas City's defense this week. Kansas City was ready for him. And it was an impressive win for Kansas City, and now they're starting to get all their weapons back. And I'm just watching the morning football shows, and they're all picking Kansas City as like a top 5 team in the league, and they're 3-3. So, there's a bunch of teams with 4 wins and more wins than Kansas City, but Kansas City looks to be figuring it out and hitting their stride right in the middle of the season. Usually they play this well in December as they're going to playoff push and looking dominant, but it's looking like it's December and it's only October. It'll be interesting to see when they get Rashee Rice back, how that makes their offense possibly even more explosive. And don't look now. They look like they're hitting their stride and they're getting all their weapons back. And once they get Rice back on the field this week, it'll be interesting to see how much more dynamic they can become. So that's it for me this week. Don't forget to watch Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime. If you don't have it, you should sign up for it, because all those games so far this season have been really good games and worth watching. I'll drop a link in the description if you guys don't have it yet. I'll drop a link for you guys to check it out and see if you want to sign up for it. But I'd advise it, because right now all these Thursday night games have been worth staying up late for. So enjoy week 7. Hopefully your fantasy football team did well last week. Good luck this week with your team. Check those waiver wires for all those injuries that we're all suffering through. And don't forget to sign up for Thursday Night Football. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to give a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Do all the things down below. Thanks for watching. Thanks for giving me your time. I'll see you guys in the next video.